Welcome back, everybody. The EU console relegations continue on moving forward here. I'm Aggro here with Toli. And Toli, we've got a pretty good matchup here. We just saw one EU SEL team unable to defend their spot. Now it's CAZ's turn to try and do it up against Enable.
Well, we'll see if Enable can do the same kind of strategy that Dual Mains did. A little bit of nice mixture between that early game, Osiris Thanatos, and then the mid to late game with the Khepri and the Aphrodite. Enable, they're going to have to start enabling some things in the picks and bans if they want to overcome CAZ, the SEL team.
Well, ready to go. Picks and bans here between CAZ and Enable. CAZ, they've been the ones who have been around basically forever. This is the team with Jeron and Elexum, this duo that has been in the European SEL basically since the very beginning. There are some roster changes there in terms of their side lanes and where they're moving around. Jeron no longer in ADC, now in the jungle position.
And OverPoweredUSB was in that jungle position, going to be taking the solo lane, which was Minos before him. So this team, despite having still similar players, has to deal with some role swaps. And that's not always necessarily the easiest thing, to go from jungle, where you're dictating the pace of the game, to go into solo, and vice versa for a hunter to go into jungle, where he's just kind of relaxing in that early stage and allowing his team to do the work in the early game.
Hunbat's going to be the first pick yet again. This time it's for CAZ. The bans two mages for CAZ, Zeus and the Morrigan. Enable focusing out some off-role junglers, basically, between Chang'e and Raven. Cabrakan and Susano, two quick picks there for Enable. Susano was banned away in game one. This time is going to be locked in for Enable. Both junglers on the table early here.
A lot of damage between this Cabrakan and Susano, a lot of burst damage. CAZ is going to need to figure out ways to really deal with the mobility from Susano, preferably a Whirlpool maybe out of a Poseidon, and that's exactly going to be it.
Yep.
Just shutting down the Stormkata dash on the third strike and that important jet stream to be able to teleport into safety.
Elexum's played this character quite a bit during his time in the SCL, and it's going to be Medusa on the other side for Enable. Now, EU on the console scene seems to like Medusa in the mid lane a little bit more, so that's not necessarily guaranteed for the Hunter for Enable. But CAZ, I assume that Xing is going to be going in the solo, though we do see it in support from time to time.
Every now and then, teams will mix things up by putting a warrior into the support role and have Xing over there at the solo. So you want to figure out ways to balance out your team composition, because having two guardians on both the support role and the solo lane, you're limiting your options really in terms of team fight potential with physical damage. So you want to be able to spread that out relatively evenly, but CAZ Esports, they still have flexibility with that Xing pick, has a lot of control, and with, not to mention control, Hunbat's with that Fear No Evil, it's going to set up a lot of good Krakens in these jungle encounters.
Yeah, a lot of beads burners early on here for CAZ, at least on that left-hand side. You've got that Hunbat's and Xing, of course, but Poseidon can also get the beads out with the Whirlpool Kraken combination. I assume that that's Xing in solo just because of that easy knock-up to interrupt the tremors out of Cabrakan. If Cabrakan is going to the solo lane, though, he could also go to support. Kernos got through the first 6 picks. No one picked him, so Enable, they're going to ban him away, whereas CAZ, they're looking more towards the Guardian side. They think that Cabrakan is indeed going to solo, so they ban away the Geb.
I like the Geb ban here because you're looking to Kraken easy targets. You don't want the Geb shield to be able to stop that offensive tool and mindset coming out of Enable, though. Trying to ban away the Ares, that cripple option has been stripped away, at least in the Guardian role.
Yeah, I like this Ares ban quite a bit, not only because of the cripple like you mentioned, but neither Cabrakan nor Susano have CC immune ultimate, so that's a guaranteed no escape, at least, or a purification beads force if Ares were to be locked in by CAZ. CAZ gonna ban away the Isis, so they believe that Medusa is going over to the duo lane, and they'll be meeting up with Fafnir over there, getting through all the way down to 4th pick here for Enable.
Athena being locked in for CAZ Esports. That Defender of Olympus going to provide some global pressure for CAZ, so Hunbat's here should be able to make his impact known in that solo lane. Athena and Xing still could be flexed between that support and the solo lane. It's been a long time since we've seen Athena in the solo lane, but I would definitely like to see it here, providing some global pressure onto the dual lane, make it a nice 3-on-2.
A little bit more late game for Enable. Scylla going to be the last pick, and again, CAZ, I'm just looking at their draft Toli, and it's just, well, I have to have purification beads for Hunbat's ult, and Xing ult. But then if I don't have beads for Taunt, that's going to be a guaranteed Whirlpool as soon as Elexum gets Gem of Isolation. Good luck getting out of that after the Taunt. Well-drafted composition here for CAZ, but Enable just has a lot of outright strong picks. I mean, Cabrakan, Susano, Medusa, Fafnir, all near the top of their roles in terms of prioritization across the board by basically every team.
It's going to be very important to see how Enable executes their composition accordingly. There's a lot of room of flexibility for CAZ Esports. Margin of error is the word I'm looking for, where like if you get an Athena taunt, okay, cool, you burn some beads. If you don't get the damage off, you just go again. If Enable misses some of their abilities, if Jeron uses his jet stream to go in, now he's going to be out of position if they don't find some sort of beads burner, maybe Aegis, and that some sort of regard. So Enable needs to execute perfectly in these little encounters.
Enable is your Challenger Cup challengers, I suppose, to the CAZ Esports that have been reigning in the European SEL for quite some time. Slap is going to be the solo laner, Xing in that solo lane, Hunbats for Pretty Flack, and then LingXiaoWho in the mid lane with the Poseidon. Switch your Guardian player, and then no Compromise in that ADC. And as we mentioned, CAZ, they've been around for quite some time, just being all over the place, specifically Elexum and Jeron.
Still looking for some sort of invades here. CAZ Esports, though, trying to get off the purple buff. Good job with them. Not going to take the red buff, though. Still looking for more options there in the solo side as they pick up those Fire Giant Elementals. Not looking for those mid-heartbeats quite yet. Still trying to get something else in bigger terms. Looking for those buffs instead.
Dobson's going to be all alone here on this left-hand side for CAZ, just trying to get as much farm as he can because he knows he's going to lose the majority of his jungle. But except for the fact that Elexum and Mush went over there and stripped it away themselves, specifically the red buff, securing that for Elexum, which is important in the early game for the Scylla, but who really needs that help clearing early on with that crush.
Especially whenever you have a Fafnir by your side. Fafnir not really known for a great lane clear, especially if you're going to have this enemy support in your face to intercept that hammer, preventing the lane clear from even happening in the first place, but not really wanting to take too much damage. Pretty Flag backing off. If you get stunned out by the Fafnir, incoming Scylla root, crush combo, avoiding that at every single cost possible.
So if you're Dobson, are you pleased with the fact that you've been alone up against two in this lane thus far? Would you rather see Switch rotate out and give you an opportunity to take the 1v1?
As long as he's not losing too much farm here, he's trying to rush out this Transcendence by going Bluestone into Morningstar. Having a lot of extra mana MP5 would help him spam a lot of abilities, especially against Compromise on this Anhur. That's also one of these ability hunters that has flexibility towards being a damage dealer, but as long as Dobson's not missing out farm under the tower, he should be in a good spot despite the purple buff being stripped away from him because he's getting solo farm, whereas the Anhur isn't. He's sharing it constantly.
And then we saw as well the support there for CAZ. The Fafnir went for the Lono's Mask. This is the first time we've seen this in competitive play, Toli. What do you think about this pickup specifically for Fafnir coupled with that Watcher's Gift?
I like the idea because it's a very greedy build for a very greedy god. Fafnir is known to have a lot of gold in hand, and this god is going to be benefiting that because you get more protections the more gold you sit on. And with this new starter item, once you finish off the stacks at about 75 or so, you're going to get an extra 400 gold at your disposal. So you're just looking to rake it in, and then as soon as you're looking for that right timing to pick up a next item, you're going to sell this for a pretty good marginal profit.
Exactly. This is an item that is new to Smite, added very, very recently, and it stacks up using that same Watcher's Gift mechanic where you don't want to get last hits. You want minions to die around you without you being the one to kill them. And as you mentioned, Toli, once you hit 75 stacks, you're going to get a nice boost of gold, as well as the fact that you're getting extra health, which with each one of those stacks makes you a little bit more tanky in the early game, but it's really picked up more so for the gold gain than anything else.
And we've seen the dual lane, level 5 versus 4 on the Hunter, just now hitting 5 as the Honor, but in mid lane, trying to force something out. The Purification beats from Jeron having to be expended there. The Susano not getting the better end of things.
That's a big win there for Enable, getting that Purification beats out. As we mentioned, Jeron on the Susano doesn't have a CC immune ultimate. Typhoon doesn't help you out in terms of getting out of any sort of crowd control, and there's plenty of that on the side of Enable. You know Pretty Flacco is just going to be looking for Jeron with that Fear No Evil as soon as he can.
Absolutely. You can use the Typhoon to disrupt the combinations of abilities coming from your enemies, but it's not going to help you get out of dodge. Dobson looking for some sort of poke potentially as he hits level 6, but instead looking to back off as the buffs are about to respawn. And then in the mid lane, the early exchange, no ultimates were really used by Enable just to be able to get that relic off of Jeron. Instead, it was one Athena dash taunt, and that's something that is going to enable them to constantly get more of these relics off the table.
I see what you did there. Enable. Well done. We're off to a great start here at EU Relegations. Jeron in the jungle, you mentioned a little bit before we went into picks and bans, Toli. How difficult of a transition is going from the hunter role to the jungle?
Well, like I mentioned before, Hunter, you're looking to passively farm in the early game, looking to get your items, whether you're stacking Devil Gloves or the Transcendence. That's when you're going to start getting online with a physical power. Whereas a jungler, you have to be in the front line at every single point of the game, more or less, and trying to make the important calls. The only thing you're calling as a Hunter is like, hey, my Hunter's missing.
Hey,
watch out.
He might be on gold. I don't know. I'm getting dove in the back. Someone help me. That's basically all any backliner needs to say,
Pretty
right?
much.
Just help me, and I'm dead. And then you complain about it. That's the way you do it, at least in the back line. At least that's the way I used to do it. Elexum backs and finishes off a Book of Thoth very early on. He went for that Soul Trap start. A little bit of, it's a lot of power, actually, in that mid lane, but no starter item. Though a lot of the times we see these mid laners go for the boots and then into the Book of Thoth if they're going for that Soul Trap start. Elexum decides he doesn't need any extra mobility right now and instead decides to start stacking up that power item early on. Do you like that decision, or would you rather have seen him gone for the mobility?
It's an interesting investment because for 1,400 gold, you're getting a lot of power, and that's not a bad idea for even an early game Scylla. As long as you have the confirmed setup between, Susano or the Fafnir, that extra power between 65 on the Soul Trap versus the starter item and boots could be the difference between finding the execute on a monster and resetting versus not necessarily getting the guaranteed kill and then not maybe extending the team fight in your favor.
I agree with you there, and also the fact that Scylla is basically as mana efficient as it goes in that mid lane, so where you're really lacking in terms of mana sustain or even health sustain without a starter item by going for that Soul Trap start. Scylla can kind of, it isn't really as worried about that as most mid laners. She clears very mana efficiently, basically just by using Crush.
And by going for Soul Trap, you're only getting about 2 potions in the lane, so you're not investing as many potions compared to the enemy mid-mage. So you're only looking at about 1250 disparity between the tier 2 and tier 3, and that's not that long of a wait, especially when you're constantly rotating to get some of these buffs off of the map.
Mush doesn't have that Lono's Mask completed quite yet, but does have the Travelers, whereas Switch, he went for the Reinforced Greaves. If you would have asked me which supports go in Reinforced Greaves and which is going Travelers, I would have told you that they would be switched. Switch would be the one with the Travelers, and it would be Mush with the Reinforced, just because of the amount of CC, that crowd control reduction would be very, very helpful, as well as the fact that the Whirlpool and Fear No Evil stack up that Reinforced Greaves passive very, very quickly.
Absolutely. 20% crowd control reduction is nothing to scoff at, especially against an Athena taunt that's going to last for 2 seconds once that's maxed out. Making that about a 1.6 second is going to be very impactful for Mush, but instead relying on that Draconic form to be able to avoid a lot of this heavy burst damage coming out of Enable in form of the Kraken.
Dobson uses the Petrify to clear the wave and put a little bit of extra poke on the No Compromise, but he's going to be able to jump away without too much of a worry. No lifesteal, but does have that Death's Toll to give himself a little bit of sustain in that lane. I think Dobson was just hoping to catch No Compromise sleeping, basically, but with Switch there, the Anhur knew he was fairly safe.
Dobson having a power spike of that tier 2 Transcendence, whereas No Compromise hasn't backed for his second completed item yet, still sitting on the Death Soul and the Warrior Tabby. Now Dobson's going to allow No Compromise to back off with that wave right in front of your face. You don't really want to walk past that wave to stop your enemy from backing, despite having that nice little power spike, because you never really know who's coming around that corner. However, as I said, that CAZ Esports has great vision around the gold.
Taunt onto Elexum, jumped onto by the Hun Bats, but no real commit out of Enable. I like the patience that this Challenger Cup team is showing. A lot of times when you're going up against some established veterans in your region, you start to think of, that we got to force this fight, we got to try and prove that we belong, but this team seems to be content just playing until they get their individual power spikes and when they know they're playing strong.
Their mid to late game is also pretty solid. The Krakens are going to be hitting harder. You're really waiting for Slap to look for their items. Nice triple taunt though. The Kraken coming out, going to be first blood. Pretty flat getting the credit of that one.
Great taunt there out of Switch, though. He's the one who deserves the credit that time around. Not only gets the kill for his mid laner, or excuse me, for his jungler for the first blood, but he got 2 sets of beads with the same taunt there. Jeron and Dobson Both had to use them. Tried to get another taunt onto Jeron that time, but doesn't quite find it. Elexum waiting for that I'm a Monster. Locks down the mid laner, but then misses it despite the fact that the Aegis was there. Elexum is very, very low. Drops the crush just in case. Pretty Flacco decides to teleport to that monkey bounce. But the Poseidon gets pretty lucky to get out of danger there in the mid lane.
Missed opportunity, overpowered USB, made the rotation, but the pull didn't come out. After the jet stream, the cooldowns did not line up. Slap trying to find somebody out of position with that ultimate, but the double dash was just not enough to cover the distance. Needs to be level 12 for that second slot relic. Maybe could look for Blink after that missed opportunity.
Basically sloppy all around in the mid lane there from both teams. A little bit too hesitant from Elexum, though that Aegis was waiting. I think he was trying to bait that out of LingXiaoWho, but a little bit too patient for the mid laner. A couple missed ultimates on the both sides, basically. But again, it's Enable on top. They're the ones with that first blood. And for me, it's been Switch. I mean, that triple taunt, we already talked about it. Yes, then he misses the taunt in the mid lane on Jeron, but if Enable's able to play around their support and trust him to get some good taunts off, that's where this composition really excels, is playing in that 3v3 where Switch can be the beads forcer.
And by shutting down the Guardian or the jungler, now you're in turn also shutting down Elexum. A lot of damage dealt onto LingXiaoWho, but Switch right around the corner to be able to get him out of trouble. Elexum not able to get the confirmed kill earlier on. He was really hesitant on that I'm a Monster, waiting for that Typhoon knockup, and because of how long he was sitting on that ultimate, he was forced to use it before it would expire, and a missed opportunity for at least a return kill.
I like the idea here from No Compromise. Just make sure that nothing's going on around this Gold Fury. He's level 11. He's got the red buff. It'd be very difficult for either Mush or Elexum to really make him think twice about his positioning. As the red buff falls off of him, he decides to fall back towards his lane. No Compromise is gone for this Icaval pickup. Not the same sort of just raw power that Transcendence is providing for Dobson, but also provides a little bit more utility for himself.
Absolutely. You're taking away physical power from items of whoever you're hitting, and taking away a lot of power from Dobson that's stacking up that Transcendence. Not to mention the attack speed that you get from Icaval is going to help enfeeble a lot of penetration being stripped away from Dobson whenever that passive does go into effect.
3v3 in the mid lane. Enable continues to group up as 3 between their jungle, mid, and support. Not a lot to farm right now on the map, except for these oracles that are about to respawn. Red buff is still standing for Enable, but they're going to try and get this neutral objective first. Switch just waiting. You can tell he's looking for that dash taunt, but instead Enable decide they would rather take the objective and not the fight, because look how many sets of purification beads are up for CAZ. That's the one thing that I think teams need to be wary of up when you're playing with an Athena, is if the enemy team has their purification beads, it's pretty easy to use those and then just immediately turn on the Athena that dashed into you.
And CAZ, recognizing this, just lit up the Gold Fury like a Christmas tree with wards all across, behind it, in front of it, to the side, having 2 sentry wards on the top left mid harpies, and then one right above where the oracles does spawn that vision. Still haven't seen too much action here between these two hunters, surprisingly enough. 2 different sets of power spikes. Once the Transcendence 2 from Dobson looked for something, but then the rotation from Switch happened, whereas No Compromise didn't really look for sort of an engagement despite having the Icaval.
Pretty Flacco in the front line. There's the Free No Evil onto Elexum, who's forced into that purification beads and dashes away. Pretty Flacco, that's all he was looking for, but it does cost him his beads in return, forced out by that hammer from Mush.
Didn't really need to use the purification beads just to negate the hammer, unless he wanted to throw out that monkey bounce to be able to chase down Elexum in the mid lane after that sentinel was used. The teleport to the monkey is a great tool, because not only do you get an extra guaranteed in him, but you can help synergize your passive with that and finding the burst damage onto that Scylla.
Gold Fury started up by Enable. They have that Kraken available if they want to try and secure this. Elexum still on the way back for base. The Kraken secures the Gold Fury, but Mush does a great job of getting out of the damage courtesy of his transformation. Overpowered USB makes Pretty Flacco pay for his team getting the objective, but Enable trying to get out with only 1 loss on top of that gold.
Slap able to blink away into safety, but now he doesn't have the blink engage potentially to defend this tier 1 mid tower. Poseidon still hasn't backed here, and without the damage and the control from that, Slap is just going to absolutely fall. Defender of Olympus buying him a little bit of time, but it's not enough. Overpowered USB getting that one.
Huge taunt from Switch once he lands, but there's no follow-up for him. No Compromise, I don't know if he was paying attention, really more worried about his own life. Tier 1 tower is going to fall, as is basically standard. When one team gets the Gold Fury, if they didn't wipe the opposition, you're basically giving up your Tier 1 tower in response. But the problem for Enable is that they lost 2 kills there and not just 1. And now it looks like the Portal Demon is soon to follow. CAZ Esports does a nice job of evening up this game after that Gold Fury secured by Enable.
Jeron even negating the Portal Demon just to strip away the speed buff from Pretty Flag, and that's allowing them to get back into it. They were down a little bit after that first blood, but doesn't matter once you get the objectives. LingXiaoWho able to crack in that into safety despite the contest from both the Petrify coming out of Dobson and the Draconic form that was being attempted by Mush just wasn't in time to steal that objective away. And the respawn timers at around 12 to 13 minutes are relatively long enough that one team can easily take advantage of it with all those objectives between Tier 1 mid, Portal Demon, even a speed buff on top.
Completely even right now. We're 14.5 minutes in and these two teams are dead even overall. Yes, CAZ Esports has the lead in kills, but the gold is basically tied up. Enable still trying to make their way into the SCL. Even the experience is less than 400 between the two teams. Very, very evenly matched thus far.
Looking at the late game damage potentials between both of these teams, and I can't even give it to one or the other. It's just so evenly matched because on one side you have Elexum with the Ama Monsters, you have the Krakens coming out of LingXiaoWho, and who can you really give it to? Instead of the damage, I'm looking at more of the which team has more control aspect. Nice little stun onto Dobson, forced to use that Aegis. Mush even using the Draconic form just to stop the chase from happening.
Very good play there out of Enable. Invest literally nothing outside of some regular abilities to get not only an Aegis out of Dobson, but the ultimate out of Mush. And that Fafnir ultimate, very impactful, even when the Gold Fury is down, just in terms of turning team fights around. Whenever Fafnir goes up into that Draconic form, he's basically another solo laner. That's how much damage he does and how hard he is to bring down.
About 130 seconds remaining on the Relic from Dobson, about 70 from Mush. Nice little taunt onto the Fafnir. Barely taking any damage from the in-hand set. Blink from Flag, finding the Fear No Evil. Overhand smash into the Impale. Desert Fury wasn't necessary, but just for good measure.
Very well played there out of Enable. They even the kill total at 2. Jeron's made the rotation, only finds 1 with that Wind Siphon. Typhoon gonna knock up Switch, but I don't know if he's the right target here. Pretty Flacco's to jump away and just is able to get out of that lacerate. Petrified, not enough to clean him up. Meanwhile, Ling on the backside hit Elexum with that Kraken, but not enough to knock him down. Dobson putting some good damage and a great Wind Siphon out of Jeron put Switch back in trouble.
The Aegis buying him a little bit of time. Defender of Olympus mitigating a lot of damage. And I like the play from LingXiaoWho because he used that Whirlpool Kraken onto Elexum that basically got the Scylla out of the fight. So now that means you invested your Kraken to make sure that the rest of your team doesn't have to deal with the Ama Monsters and even the Root Crushes, as Elexum had to go back to base. Now, unfortunately, that put himself out of position to take too much damage, resulting in a loss of a Tier 1 tower.
Tier 1 tower on the left side falls, as you mentioned. Wind Siphon from Jeron, not quite fast enough to catch that somersault coming out of Pretty Flacco. So Enable continues to out-objective, at least in terms of towers, their opposition thus far. They've got 2 Tier 1 towers knocked down. Enable still looking to knock down their first.
Getting a little bit more space control is always a nice thing to do. If you want to chase down the enemy, you don't have to worry about diving Tier 1 mid, Tier 1 in the dual lane. And now you still have your own Tier 1 towers to duck behind, not to mention having some sort of vision. If you ever look to ward in that little area, look to cut through one of the lanes and look for a sneaky path, but instead it's going to be the left-hand side. Compromise still trying to look for more trades against Dobson. No lifesteal on this Anhur, but instead Dobson going for this Aussie.
I do like this play though from No Compromise. Yes, he's a level down and doesn't have any lifesteal, but look at how much ward coverage he has in that left side jungle. He's gonna know as soon as someone starts to break that rotation over. There's the Desert's Fury coming out of the Anhur, but not enough damage to knock down Dobson. Has the opportunity to maybe get this tower here, but with the rotation coming from Mush, No Compromise decides to back up and just let it go.
And the thing about Dobson versus No Compromise is Anhur can make these kinds of aggressive plays because he has the Athena, whereas Dobson can't. He doesn't have the same global pressure on his side with Mush. Instead, he has the attack speed steroid out of the form of the Coerce, and that's going to be a different sort of style between objective fighting versus lane boxing 1v1.
Important set of oracles go the way of Enable with that Gold Fury just respawning. That's guaranteed vision for the Challenger Cup team that CAZ Esports is going to have to deal with if they want to try and pull that Gold Fury. Enable's definitely going to know about it. I like the decision from Slap to head over to that right-hand side. He's got the teleport available, and he's going to pick up an extra wave that OverPoweredUSB may miss a little bit of because of his rotation into mid.
The thing about Oracles around 18.5 minutes, it's not going to necessarily force one team's hand or another to get the Gold Fury, but it could enable you to get vision, not necessarily of them doing it, but teams looking to ward around the Gold Fury. That's what that 1 minute duration is all about. Like, hey, did you see anybody ward around the Gold Fury? Okay, do they go high side, low side? Let me know where it is. I'm going to try to counter their counter, and we're all going to be countering each other.
And then that opens the door for you to be the one with the Gold Fury, because you know if they have vision around that objective or not, as you were mentioning. So even if it isn't about stopping the enemy team from doing the Gold Fury with that Oracle vision, that 1 minute window where that vision is provided to you really opens the door for you to do it for, you know, a minute and a half instead of just that 1 minute where the Oracle vision remains. Portal Demon has respawned as Jeron finds one with that Wind Siphon. And there's the Fear and Weevil on top of him. Nice Aegis though out of the jungler. Gets him out of that Kraken. That's two big teamfight ultimates now down for Team Enable.
A lot of slow there with that Gem of Isolation from Poseidon, but caught in a 1v4. Slap gets pulled back in, forced to use the ultimate. Defender of Olympus as well. A lot of peels for the Xing. Even the meditation coming out, but Draconic form hits it. The Ama Monster finding the reset onto Switch as well. That's going to be 2 dead for Enable.
CAZ taking the 2-0 there in terms of those kills. Great plays out of OverPoweredUSB. That Sunder coming up big there. That's what makes Slap so squishy in that engagement in Elexum with a nice 2 set of I'm a Monsters there. This Gold Fury is going to go down totally. That's going to be CAZ Esports, their first Gold Fury of the game. Enable's trying to start up this Portal Demon, but I think they were a little too slow to start this up. CAZ Esports might be able to stop them from doing this.
There's no Kraken available, but just barely with that overhand smash securing that. So 750 gold back into the Order's side. Still trying to find something. Jeron gets the jet stream. Going to force out the jump from Anhur. Not going to commit to diving that tier 2 tower because everybody has to back from Enable. That could be a free tier 1 for CAZ.
Nice blink there coming out of Pretty Flacco. Looked like he was in a bad spot, but able to use his relic to get himself out of danger. The third tier 1 tower of the game, again, goes CAZ Esports' way. They've only got tier 2s left to worry about totally. They're up 4-2 in kills. We're 21 minutes in. The first real gold lead of the game is now for the SCL veterans, CAZ Esports, up about 3,000 gold over Enable.
Taking that portal is Enable, trying to find some sort of poke here. Finding a taunt onto the Fafnir, stunned back against the pillar, taking about half of his health. The Draconic form is not available. The Fear and Weevil coming out, finally finding it as Slap. I'm a Monster, hits 2, but no executes.
Slap gonna toss OverPoweredUSB towards his own blue buff, and Enable looks like they want to retreat. Overpowered does not, but a great pillar into the Whirlpool. When you've got that many slows stacking on one of another, you're basically rooted. LingXiaoWho.
That hurts. That always hurts. There's a lot of damage or diminishing returns after constant chain CC, so you always have to be careful whenever you constantly taunt the same target, constantly stun them out, because that 2-second taunt essentially becomes about a 1 second or less. It's not really enough time to set up the Whirlpool Kraken, and even then, even if that Kraken does go off, look at the defenses coming out of OverPoweredUSB. Not only is he the Cabrakan that has that aura to mitigate the damage, but he's sitting on a Void Stone to have the magical protection. He has the Spirit Syrup, so even when he does get CC'd by the taunt, he's taking an exorbitant less amount of damage.
Now, he doesn't have a lot of health with that build. I think that's one thing that Enable may be looking at as Jeron finds the pull onto Slap one more time. That ultimate is not good enough to get Jeron off of his back, and Overpowered is going to be able to pick up his third kill, at least in that solo lane. 3-0-2 for this Cabrakan. And again, Jeron's had a very nice game totally. 1-0-4. He's been around the map. He's been pressuring the right points every single time and hasn't died up against this heavy CC composition coming out of Enable.
As a Susano jungler, this is kind of the dream that you want to have for yourself and your teammates, to be able to ping pong wherever you really want to, whether it's duo, mid, or solo lane. Your goal is not necessarily to die or to find kills. It's to disrupt and make your statement known here. To say, like, you're not controlling the pace of the game. I am. I'm going to be jet streaming and I'm going to be looking for the pulls. Your taunts are meaningless.
Switch going to have to use his ultimate just to get out of the danger that he put himself in that mid lane. Just realized that all 3 kills for Enable are all onto Mush for CAZ, and that's really not that bad. I mean, that means that Elexum, Dobson, Jeron all have been able to get their power items online without fear of dying, basically, at all. Pretty Flacco realizes that CAZ has started up this Fire Giant. Portal Demon still has a while to respawn, so CAZ, this is their only option around this objective. Only have about 3,000 gold right now. Bit of a risky pull. There's a taunt from XuenMushh. Only finds the beads out of Elexum. That Kraken not going to do a whole lot. But you can say the same about that I'm a Monster. Pretty Flacco around the back. Finds the Fear No Evil onto Elexum. But he's going to survive. XuenMushh can't say the same about him or the jungler, Pretty Flacco. CAZ finds 2 kills. Elexum dashes forward into the mid laner. And Ling going to make him pay.
Definitely not a wise decision to isolate yourself away from the rest of your team. Elexum trades out himself for Pretty Flacco and XuenMushh. Could have been a lot cleaner coming out of CAZ. They pulled the Fire Giant, got it to about 50% health. They forced Enable's hand to try to stop this important objective. They put themselves in an awkward position where Jeron had to dive the back line, and then we saw a nice little dash taunt from XuenMushh, but didn't really find the right targets, and a lot of missed abilities from both mid-mages in that last encounter.
Yeah, that last fight, I feel like CAZ may have been able to start up the Fire Giant with the 5v3, but instead they decided to chase kills, and Elexum all by himself dashes in point blank against the Poseidon, and point blank is where Poseidon wants you once his Kraken is down. Tidal Surge is a very slow ability that you have to be close to hit consistently. And then that Trident is obviously a ton of damage when you're up close to him.
Elexum has a lot of damage between the Book of Thoth, the Spear of Desolation, almost finishing off that Rada Tahuti, but you can't disrespect the damage coming out of LingXiaoWho, despite not having the same amount of magical power with a slightly more utility style with a Gem of Isolation. Dynasty played Helmet, the 33% magical penetration from the Obsidian Shard. The Poseidon, like you mentioned, with all those abilities at level 18 or 17, still does a lot of damage at the 25-minute mark. And without any relics from Elexum between the beats or the Aegis, that was a guaranteed death on his part.
I mean, Tidal Surge hits like a truck. It's just a matter of can you actually hit it. And in team fights, it's very difficult to do so on anything but the frontliner who's right in front of you. But when a backliner puts themselves right in position for you to get smacked by that wave, it's a pretty easy job there for Ling. And able to hold despite losing that team fight overall 2-1. CAZ still in the lead in terms of kills and gold, but not by a whole lot. And as you mentioned, Enable's team composition with this amount of lockdown does continue to get stronger as the game goes on. I think the idea here for Enable, their biggest problem in these team fights in my mind, oh, hold that thought, double taunt out of XuenMushh in that mid lane, and that Kraken is gonna gobble up 2. Jeron and Elexum, the longtime teammates, fall together. OverPoweredUSB does return a kill here for CAZ, but already losing their 2 big damage dealers.
The Frenzy was popped by Mush after the Draconic form. Not really enough follow-up damage. Nice little taunt onto Dobson yet again into the knockup route coming out of Slap, chasing down Dobson with the Anhur jump. No Compromise, looking for the damage, but Slap gets returned a lot of damage. Have to respect the damage potential out of OverPoweredUSB.
And I was just about to say it, Toli. There's not enough baiting relics and then re-engaging. That's what this entire composition for Enable excels at, and instead they were using Kraken off the first taunt. They were using Fear No Evil at the same time. They weren't spacing out their abilities. That time they spaced them out, and it works beautifully. Neither Jeron nor Elexum had beads or Aegis, and just out of position, XuenMushh again sets up his team beautifully.
I think Elexum's relics were still on cooldown from that last engagement, so with that in mind, it was a very easy target for XuenMushh and LingXiaoWho to be able to coordinate and take away that mid-mage from the table. CAZ looking for some sort of redemption in the Portal Demon. Still flirting with the idea. The Crush comes out, still being pulled here by OverPoweredUSB, gets that 750 gold back in hand, still ahead ever so slightly, just can't allow themselves to group up for XuenMushh's taunts.
But now they've got those relics, so Enable has to be wary of that and use that Kraken after the Purification Beads have already been used, after the Aegis is forced by the damage out of someone like No Compromise or Pretty Flacco on that backside. Slap has had a little bit of trouble, I would say, frontlining effectively, and the same sort of build that OverPoweredUSB has gone for. Neither of these Guardians have a lot of HP right now, and with how much damage Elexum is doing, how much penetration he has, how much penetration that Dobson and Jeron both have, protections aren't as useful as health right now, and I think that's why we're seeing Slap and OverPoweredUSB get knocked down fairly quickly in these team fights, because they've really focused on the prots instead of the health.
And not only that, they have to be in the front line. They're not necessarily the best peelers, so whichever one is going to sit behind can easily take advantage of the other. Pretty Flag, his health just gets erased. That one rude crush combo getting pulled back in by Jeron. And without this Hunbaz, no more fear or no evil coming off. That purification beads was still on cooldown for about 25 seconds.
Brutal right now for Enable. Cannot allow that to happen around the 28-minute mark. We're in the late stages of the game. And Fire Giant is the call here for CAZ Esports. They've got that 5v4 power play advantage. Switch gonna be forced to dash away, this time instead of dashing in, as Slap continues to just try to be an annoyance on that front line. But CAZ, they don't feel confident enough to go right for the objective. Nice pull in there from Jeron, forces the Aegis out of no compromise. Maybe that's the window they need to try and take the objective.
Still 10 seconds remaining on Pretty Flag to revive. Enable can easily still hold on a little longer. They have the Kraken to be able to steal this away. Fear no evil, or sorry, the Kraken versus the Ama Monster is going to be the two focal points for both of these teams.
There's the pull in from Jeron, immediately taunted out, and again the Kraken used preemptively by LingXiaoWho. Typhoon being charged up. I'm a monster over the wall, not enough to find the kill, but a big petrify coming out of Dobson, locks down Switch. Pretty Flacco has returned and finds Jeron in revenge, jumps over the wall, but Elexum follows him. No cooldowns available for the mid laner though. Sunder off the mark, but Overpowered gonna squish the jungler down. 2-1, CAZ on top once more.
Really hard to run away from Cabrakan with that steroid being proc, but look at this. Slap teleports on the top side of the Fire Giant, knocks up Dobson, roots him into place. The Fire Giant pool not doing too much damage as the dash was available for Medusa, but Fire Giant still being looked at here.
Overpowered gonna teleport in on top of that ward for on the Fire Giant for CAZ. No lockdown here, doesn't have his ultimate, but has those 2 stuns available. CAZ continues to just be not on the same page in my mind, totally. I mean, Dobson continues to try and pull his Fire Giant while Elexum is trying to zone out the Poseidon that doesn't have the ultimate. Just not seem to be on the same page in terms of what they want to do around this objective.
I think it's more of a baiting tool because Dobson has the lifesteal on the Yassi. He has a lot of objective damage with the Titan's Bane. That's a huge amount of percent penetration, and that's a lot of protections on the Fire Giant. So that's a great build here coming out of Dobson just to be able to secure this great dash from the Medusa, just to dash away from Switch's taunt.
And Mush is able to steal away that speed buff. No compromise is done with this Fire Giant dance. He's going to that left side to split push, and Overpowered doesn't have that teleport. I'm a monster from Elexum, finds LingXiaoWho and makes him pay. Great pull out of Jeron, finds 2. Slap trying to get away. He'll be able to just barely, but a great fight there out of CAZ. Overpowered sets up Elexum beautifully, and CAZ finds 2 more kills.
Jeron's not done. He dove beyond the tier 2 just to find Slap. 3 for nothing, no compromise. He gets 2,000 gold in his team's pocket with that tier 1 and tier 2 in the dual lane, but he gave up too much in return. The Fire Giant's about to be secured by CAZ Esports, and not only did they win that team fight so convincingly, all that work that No Compromise did on the left is about to be answered in kind once all those tier 2s are stripped away.
Right now, the tier 2 on the right is the first target for CAZ. They're at 14-7, 31.5 minutes in. And again, they're the ones who take the objective after the team fight. Great setup again by OverPoweredUSB. It's pretty easy to snag those I'm a Monster resets whenever someone's locked in between a bunch of servers without an Aegis there for LingXiaoWho.
And look at the build coming out of Elexum, finishing off that Rod of Tahuti. His magical power is absolutely through the roof. Needs a little bit more pen, probably going to go into the Obsidian Shard, considering just how much defense Slap has. Not too much health, so don't really need the Soul Reaver or the Ethereal Staff. You're looking for that big, heavy hit, get the resets on the Ama Monster, and if that doesn't kill him, the Roots Crush certainly will.
The mid-tier 2 tower fell to CAZ, as did the Gold Fury. Makes their second of the game. Again, they're doubling Enable in kills right now. It is the Obsidian Shard for Elexum, as the rest of his team gets pretty close to finishing off their builds. Jeron, he's all done. I love this last item Magi's pickup, specifically with how strong this setup has been from Switch with the taunts. That gives you another set of purification beads, basically, up against that crowd control ability out of the Athena. And Dobson's all done as well. Again, a penetration-oriented build, looking to shred through the protections that Slap has built, as well as that of Switch, because there isn't a lot of health there once he gets through those prots.
So when we look at Magi's Blessing, we think of it as a defensive item, but it's also a baiting offensive tool. So if you can bait out Switch to dash and taunt you to get that bubble out of position, now the escape isn't there for Switch, with the exception, obviously, of the global ultimate Defender of Olympus. So Jeron can easily pull the Athena back into danger. The root, the crush, all the damage from Elexum will just be guaranteed if Switch commits to that dash taunt.
Yeah, I don't know if Switch could, even if he dash taunted and then immediately started channeling Defender of Olympus, I don't know if he'd be able to survive the outright damage that CAZ has available to them now. I mean, we're talking a late game Scylla, a full build Hunter as well for Dobson. There's a lot of damage on the board, and whereas in the early game you can dash taunt fairly safely on Athena, not really the same in the late game. Have to be very wary of your positioning. Jeron gonna find 2 with that Wind Siphon, but it's just there to get a little bit of poke onto the enemy Hunter. Saves his Magai's Blessing. Didn't get hit by that knock-up root combination and a slap. There's the blink forward by the Soul Later, but he's getting shredded by Dobson. Big damage out of Elexum's Crush as well. Frenzy popped by CAZ Esports. They knock down that tier 1, or excuse me, that Phoenix on the left, and Elexum finds a reset on the slap with the I'm a Monster. Kraken's good there from LingXiaoWho to knock down the mid laner very low, but that Desert Fury not quite enough to finish him off. He gets up and over that wall.
Barely able to escape with the Sentinel. Jeron in a sticky situation. He has to jet stream away. Jumping back into safety is Pretty Flacco, finding 2 Phoenixes with the Fire Giant. CAZ able to walk away for a little bit longer. Still on the hunt though. Pretty Flack doesn't have Fear No Evil, doesn't have Blink, but doesn't want to let these low health targets get away for free.
He may not want to totally, but I think he has to. Look at how healthy the front line is for CAZ Esports, and Dobson as well. Still has his Aegis, still full HP. Portal Demon falls to CAZ Esports. That's going to turn red and give them an opportunity to just pop right back out by that Fire Giant and start their siege on the right-hand side. Almost a good defense there by Enable. They almost killed both Jeron and Elexum, but almost doesn't really do a whole lot for you. They lose both their left and mid Phoenixes in that engagement, and now they've only got 1 structure left to defend their Titan.
This Frenzy pickup from Mush has just been so powerful in the mid to late game team fights. So even if you don't necessarily hit your abilities, the in-hands from Dobson are just going to absolutely melt everybody away. Elexum is just there for good measure to confirm any target that gets guaranteed set up by OverPoweredUSB in those stuns, in the tremors, in that Cabrakan ultimate. It's so easy to confirm the Root Crush or the I'm a Monster.
And you've got extra penetration with that upgraded Frenzy from Mush. So everyone on his team is getting extra pen, extra attack speed, extra power as well. And as if that the late game damage wasn't enough coming out of CAZ, that just amplifies it that much more. Fire Giant gonna respawn in about 25 seconds here and Enable know they have to push up their left and mid side if they want to defend this.
And something that I really like coming out of CAZ is the way Jeron has been playing this whole game, especially that encounter on the left side, Phoenix finding the pull onto the Anhur and then immediately storm-cutting away into safety. This is the telltale sign of what makes a jungler good or great.
And OverPoweredUSB, his transition from from jungle to solo has been pretty impressive as well. 6-0 at 8, playing this jungler-esque god in Cabrakan, just trying to make that transition as easy as possible. But his setup for the rest of his team has been really, really solid and has not been locked down and killed once. Both he and Dobson, the 2 side laners for CAZ, have clean death totals, 0 for both side laners for CAZ Esports as they pick up their 2nd Fire Giant of the game. No contest whatsoever out of Enable, who now have to try and just defend their last remaining objective on this right side.
An interesting strategy that Overpowered does is by building so tanky, all he really needs is that Sunder for the damage amplification of the rest of his team. Switch gets baited in, the Fear No Evil not on the mark at anybody. Great separation from CAZ, forced to jump away back into safety, but Slap overcommitted.
Elexum used the I'm a Monster, but it wasn't even needed. Knock up there onto the jungler, and Elexum gonna crush him over the wall. 17 now for CAZ Esports. They knock down that Phoenix, and now they're looking for the Titan. Dobson, he's more worried about the kills in the enemy fountain, but CAZ Esports took them 37 minutes, but they take game 1 over Enable 17-7 and continue to try and defend their spot in the European SCL.
You know, the one SCL team lost the last time around, but CAZ says, we're not going to fall victim of this time. We're going to hold on to our spot for now. Still having some more games throughout this day. So CAZ starting things off strong for the day.
That's a big win to start off the day for them, as you mentioned. I mean, as we saw, the other SCL team did not defend their spot. CAZ already putting their best foot forward to start off the day and look to go back into the SCL for the summer split. OverPoweredUSB, I mean, we talked so much about Jeron and Elexum and Mush with the Frenzy, but I want to go back to this kid in the solo lane, making the transition from jungle. He was all over the place on this Cabrakan.
And I like the draft to be able to pick up the Cabrakan. Baiting out the Batz is probably not something that they were expecting. They thought maybe, okay, Cabrakan would be picked or Susano, and we'll grab one or the other. And it certainly worked out for the solo laner, new solo laner, former jungler.
And that's right. They picked this Cabrakan very early on in the draft. They knew they wanted to put him on something comfortable early on, and that's something I like to see out of teams that make roster changes, is making sure that whoever is moving around where you know, it takes a little bit to get your god pool going, you need to find the characters you're comfortable with. Pick something for them early, even in the solo lane where a lot of times you're looking for that counter matchup. I liked the draft there out of CAZ, and they played it well. I mean, a couple misplays and a couple missed abilities, but overall, they team fought pretty well.
Absolutely, and this is going to put them in a good spot moving forward for the rest of the day.
Absolutely, they take their first game of the day. I believe they're up next as well, but we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more EU SCL relegations.